Hello everyone, welcome back to the next edition of the ONLE Networking Show, news, education and member spotlights from ONLE Networking. I'm James West.
And I'm Kelly West, and we are the co-founders of ONLE, the business network for people who like people.
Got lots coming up on the show today. We're going to talk about how to network online successfully and why you might be getting it wrong. We're going to be sharing tips from the members on how to avoid wasting time on social media, quite important. And we've also got an interview with the fantastic public speaking coach, Sarina Mann. So before we start, I just want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Get Set Solent. Get Set Solent is a fully funded business support service which helps businesses in the Solent area raise finances and improve their marketing. We'll be telling you more about the services that Get Set Solent provides later in the show, but also look out for a fantastic interview, isn't it, with Steen Stones. He's one of the advisors there, and he talks about the work he does for businesses in the Solent area. Plus, he talks about his background as a Royal Marine. It's a fascinating watch. You can see that on the January ONLE Networking Show. Slight change to the format of the ONLE Networking Show, Kelly. We used to do the Networking Gem. We realised that the value that we can provide is really answering the big questions that you guys might have about business networking, particularly as it's changed, particularly as the online component comes to the fore. So cut to the chase. Episode 1, you would have already seen from the title, How to Network Online Successfully. We think about this topic of online networking a lot because obviously what we do, but we were very lucky to be invited to speak at the National FSB event specifically about networking this week. Very eye-opening, Kelly, wasn't it?
Yeah, extremely. Absolute privilege to go and be the guest speakers there. So FSB, Federation of Small Business, they lobby to Parliament on support of small business owners, etc. And the support and the services that they provide is first class, really.
They really champion small business, don't they?
So they really do, yeah. So for us, it was a great place to go because our messaging, our culture very much is in line with the FSB. So we met lots of wonderful people and over 370 registrations to the event, and there was over 200 people in attendance. So we came away absolutely buzzing because the feedback, the conversations, the connections that we've made as a result of it have just been incredible. But the biggest kind of eye-opener for us was that people don't really understand what networking is. So we thought it would be quite a good thing to just explain that a little bit more and to really go back to the basics, because even if you're a really experienced networker of many years, we go back a couple of decades with our networking alone, don't we? It is always really good to go back to the foundations and understand what it is that works and makes networking successful.
That was what was clear, that if you're going to be a good networker online, you've got to be a good networker. And you can't be a good network if you don't really understand what it is. And it really led us back to the very basics, thinking about BNI. So if you don't know what BNI is, if you're fairly new to networking, BNI was the pioneer of formalised business networking. So it's a global organisation. They kind of led the way, didn't they, in teaching people how to network. The downside of BNI that people struggle with, a lot of people that we speak to, is that they, and I'll say it because you can dispute it all you want, but this is fact. They force you to behave in a certain way as a networker. You have to go to a BNI event and contribute. And they score you based on your activity, don't they? So it's about, have you bought referrals, i.e. have you tried to help other people in the room gain business? You get penalised if you don't turn up because of the consistency. So all of the networking behaviours that you need to exhibit in order to get a result. And I think the key part of that is you've got to contribute. And I think this is what we've seen, that without the pressure, for want of a better word, to have to contribute, people have forgotten that if you don't contribute, why do you expect to get anything back?
Absolutely. I think I just want to address the BNI thing. We're here because of BNI. There's lots of groups that are here because of BNI, and when you take it back to what it was when it was founded in 1983, something like that, I can't remember off the top of my head, the principle was bringing good people together and seeing what the outcome would be, and it's evolved over the years, hasn't it? So I think when if you're new to networking, if you haven't experienced something like BNI, it is very easy to forget that contribution does mean you have to do something. You don't have to spend money necessarily, which is the scary bit for a lot of small business owners, but you do have to input If you don't input, you're not going to get an output, and that's the key, isn't it? So we just really wanted to discuss that, and I think BNI is very good at educating their networkers, you know, and we talk about it. It's quite Marmite, people love it or hate it. I'm an ex-BNI, James, you've been a spin-off BNI member, etc. And it absolutely has a place and it absolutely works. But the way that networking has evolved, there is an alternative way of doing it. And you can do both together, you know, why not? There's two sides to everything, isn't there? So the structure and the education that BNI provides is definitely something that I think as time goes on, networkers forget that there is an element of structure around how you should behave.
Yeah, I mean, it's their terminology, their strapline is givers gain, isn't it? So the idea is you contribute. You're supposed to become ambassadors for the people within your networking group. That's really powerful because you're effectively, if you're in a BNI group that's got, say, 25, 30 members, in theory, that means you've got 25, 30 people that are kind of becoming your sales force. They are out having conversations with people and they will say, you need a website, you should go and speak to this person. There's a downside to that because people end up circumventing the rules, because what if that person that builds websites isn't right for the person that you're referring to? What if, and this happens, the person that builds websites is no good and you know that they are no good, you're not going to refer them. So it creates a bit of a false narrative, this idea that it guarantees you work. And we used to get given referrals that were garbage because people were trying to just tick the box of getting, that's the downside of that kind of referral networking. The approach that we take, and a lot of networks increasingly do, is that we don't enforce that. There is no expectation that you have to bring anything to our network, certainly nothing that we're going to enforce or penalise you for, because we believe that that's the organic right way to network. You should refer to someone because they deserve to be referred to.
Yeah, and how are you going to know whether that person's right? Well, you have to build a relationship with them. You have to get to know them. You have to understand them. And let's face it, none of us are unique business owners in a field of one. We're all fish in a big pond, aren't we? So we're unique in ourselves, but maybe our offering isn't unique. And the only way that we can portray our uniqueness is for us to put our character and our personality across. So unless you're having conversations with somebody and getting to know them as a person, you're really not going to see the differentiator between people in the same industry. So that's definitely something that we champion. And to be fair, with the FSB, it's very similar. It's open category. Their networking is the same as ours. You know, you're going to be in a room with people that do something very similar to you. But the opportunity to collaborate is far greater. And we spoke about this because for FSB to get us to come along and speak was a fantastic opportunity. But we're an online network. They provide online networking, so they were going out on a limb and offering us a space, you know, in their world, as it were. So for them, they could have seen us as competition, and they didn't. They embraced it, and they welcomed us with open arms. And as a result, we've had the most incredible feedback. So have the FSB. So that's the power of opening yourself up to your technically competitors and looking at them as collaborators instead.
That was the big takeaway, wasn't it? That people admired the fact that we were so honest. So we'll say things like, look, if you don't contribute to a network, you're probably not going to get anything from it. You're also not owed anything just because you've paid to go to a networking event.
Yeah.
And the feedback I had, the most typical feedback was that because we were honest, people started being honest about their own behaviour and saying in a slightly different ways, but basically, I was guilty of doing what you called us out for, which was going to a networking event, having only half listening when other people were talking, not really doing anything after the event in order to try and help other people, but then complaining that I wasn't getting a result.
Absolutely.
And this is the point, isn't it? And this is why we bring up BNI. We don't force you to do the things that are going to help other people. But if you don't do things that are going to help other people, why do you expect to get help in return?
Yeah, and I think we've seen that. I've certainly seen that in groups over the past couple of months. So the couple of members particularly that are wanting to get a little bit more noticed on LinkedIn, they'll have a blog or an article that they've written and they'll share that with some of their fellow members and they'll ask them just to communicate on the post or share it or, you know, at least comment on it. That's how you can help your network. You don't have to be spending hundreds of pounds every time you contribute. So take it back to the basics. What do you go networking for? And ever increasingly, people are not going to network for a return on investment in pounds. It's because they want support, they want the community, and they want that network of business owners around them that they can bounce off of. And I think it's really good to remember the reasons you go networking and just hone those skills. A couple of the points that have been raised with me since the call with the FSB are some really established networkers saying, do you know what, you've made me realise that I don't put any effort in directly after the meeting. I jump from a networking meeting straight into a call or a client meeting, whatever it might be, and I don't use that time. We always recommend, don't we, half an hour after a meeting at least, just to connect with people, further the conversations, and just keep that flowing, keep that connection flowing. And we've been guilty of that in the past, but if you diarise time after the event, you're going to stand out. You're going to be
That's
the
what
first
makes the
person that
difference,
connects.
isn't it? That because if you don't do that, nothing happens.
Exactly.
Because there's so much competition, there's so many people doing similar things right now that the way to differentiate is be someone that, you made the example, people will share a blog and say, please can you comment on my blog? Yeah, of course you want me to comment on your blog because it's going to benefit you. Before you ask that, have you done it yourself for other people? Because that's the best way to earn some credit within the network and stand out. It's not about, we're going to talk about in later shows, how to introduce yourself at networking, but the best way to make an impression at networking is by showing people that you're interested in them and that you're endeavouring to help them. And as you've said, it doesn't mean you have to buy from all of them. That's not realistic. But if you show interest in people, try and connect them with other people in your network that you think they might have a synergy with, support their social media content, they're not going to forget you.
Yeah.
Some people are ignorant, let's face it, they will ignore the fact that you're helping them because people there is a sense of entitlement. I think particularly in the business world now. Well, I've built a website and I've written this post, why aren't people responding? Sorry, the world doesn't work that way, does it?
Yeah, it's hard work. I think also when you're having a one-to-one, so this also didn't surprise me, but it's obvious, isn't it? People didn't necessarily know what a one-to-one was. So one-to-one being a meeting between two people generally. You can have bigger group sessions if you want to.
Not if it's a one-to-one.
Technically wouldn't be a one-to-one, but one-to-many then that would be in that case. But a one-to-one would just be a meeting between two people. You've met at a network. Because you have to remember, Only BNI, wherever you go networking is just a platform to give you connections. You have to deepen those connections outside of that platform. So the idea is that you would have a one-to-one with members of the group, visitors, whoever it may be. So you get to find out more about each other. And again, over time, I think this has changed massively. I certainly come out of one-to-ones remembering the personal stuff that I've talked to somebody about. It doesn't have to be super personal, but even yesterday, I spoke to a lady in Florida on Anna Maria Island. Well, that's on our top of our to-do list, so I'm going to remember her, aren't I, because that's where she lives, that's where we're striving to go. We had a member that was in a breakout room with somebody, I think it was Southwest London, wasn't it? And they realised that they actually went to school together somewhere up north, wasn't it? So it's not until you start having that further, deeper conversation that you start to scratch under the surface and you realise that there's a bigger connection there, and then there's a bigger want or a need to help that person. Really important to remember that.
So in summary, put the effort in, don't expect something for nothing, build credit with people, get to know the person, and that's when the relationships develop. Because ultimately, I know we talk about support and we talk about learning, and we'll talk about that in subsequent shows, but ultimately most people go to networking events because they want business opportunities. Let's face it, at some point you've got to make a sale. And that is the way to do it. If you want people to help you, exhibit the behaviour of helping others first.
Yeah.
And put some effort in.
Absolutely. And specifically for online, your reach is far greater than you would have ever imagined before. So, as I was saying, lady in Florida, she's here 2 or 3 times a year. She knows lots of our connections that live just up the road because she's a great networker. That's a conversation that I wouldn't have if I was walking into an in-person meeting. Now, both face-to-face and online have their space? Of course they do. But if you are a business owner that can trade nationally and internationally, the world's your oyster. There are so many opportunities. And don't close doors on a conversation with somebody just because you don't think it's somebody that you'll connect with. There's always something to talk about.
Definitely. Good stuff. We should thank the people that got us on that event, shouldn't we?
We should, yeah. So Tim Brock for putting us forward, Derek Carr, who has always been a huge support to us right from day one, and Ruth Lambert, and then Joya. So thank you to all of you.
Kelly, did you know that Get Set Solent offer businesses in the Solent area fully funded access to a range of really important business services? So there's things like marketing and business workshops, there's one-to-one support, there's networking, and probably most importantly of all, there's access to grant funding.
Well, I didn't realise, but after looking into it, qualifying businesses who enrol in the programme will be matched with an expert advisor who will help them realise their business growth. And this might be through marketing, business strategy, or help to apply for one of the Get Set Solent grants.
Yeah, and because Get Set Solent is a fully funded business support service, amazingly, these services are available for free, as you say, for qualifying businesses. So check them out. Go and have a look at the website, getsetforgrowth.com/Solent, and see if you qualify for some of this support. So for the second part of the show, we're going to go around the network. Maybe instead of doing the networking gem animation, Izzy could do like an around the network thing.
Or not.
No,
Maybe.
just don't bother. Just cut that bit out and I won't even remember that I said it. So let's go around the network. We talked about social media time. Melanie Johnson was our topic a couple of months ago. So we get feedback from the members about what they do in order to, because the contention of this only talk was that social media is a great way for businesses to waste time without any kind of measurable outcome. So we asked the members, what are your tactics and strategies for avoiding wasting time? We got some great feedback, haven't we? So we'll just read some of these out. Alan Braithwaite, Yellow Tuxedo, he said, if you're scheduling posts, why not schedule time to speak to people on social media? That kind of encapsulates a lot of the ideas that we've talked about already today about the point of your follow-up activity, but it's so true. It's the missing piece when people are so desperate, and it is still to this day, I think the number one question that we get asked throughout any of our meetings, what can I post on social media to get more engagement? And the answer is always the same. It isn't the post, it's your engagement behaviour that will encourage other people to engage on what you post. And again, mirroring what we said earlier, if you want people to comment on your stuff, are you commenting on other people's stuff first? Because that's quite arrogant to think that your stuff's so much better that everyone's going to comment on your stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I love that idea. We use schedulers to save time, but have we scheduled in the time to have the follow-up conversations that are going to generate the result?
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you, Alan. Lauren McWilliams, For You Photography up in the Northeast. I have an hour a day booked for engaging on socials. I don't always do it, but when I'm strict and do it, the leads come in. Makes sense, doesn't it? Simple.
That sums it up, doesn't it? Yeah. Jo Clayton, she said, I get a lot from LinkedIn, but I put the time in. Because again, I think people prioritise the time to post, not the time to engage. It's the time to engage that builds relationships. This is why that connection between what we do with online networking and LinkedIn in particular is so strong, isn't it?
Yeah. Chris London, one of our Manchester members, there are more business owners using Facebook than are on LinkedIn. They're just in a different frame of mind. I think that's fascinating. So many people say, don't like Facebook, don't use it. They do.
They're on there.
Yeah, they're on there. And the business owners that are on there, maybe not for business, but they're going to see your stuff. So I actually found that fascinating when Chris was he did push back on that one, didn't he? Because whether we like it or not, we're on Facebook.
It's not hot, is it? It's not sexy. And the consensus that we got from the network is that far and away, LinkedIn has become the preferred platform. Some people say, head says LinkedIn, heart says I prefer using things like Instagram because I just enjoy that environment. But even that, I would say, is the minority, because what does that tell you? That what people enjoy about social media is the interaction. And I think that tends to be happening on LinkedIn, particularly for business owners. But Chris's point's great. because everyone's doing one thing, LinkedIn's kind of the hot thing at the moment, that means there's an opportunity on the other platforms that people are still using, but they're perhaps not saturated with the content that you're used to seeing. So
really
don't ignore them.
Michelle Newman loves Insta for the aesthetic and the engagement. You have to go where you find your joy. Simple, isn't it? If you enjoy using it, you're going to interact with it more.
Guy Shahar, he said you need the passion to get involved with the conversations to succeed on social. So I've focused on the two platforms that I enjoy. I think that's a really good point. Passion. So much of business social media is generic. It's boring. It's just marketing spiel, isn't it? So the way to kind of break through the screen is to put some passion into it. So Guy, I think that's a fantastic point. So for the final part of the ONLE Networking Show, we've got a special guest. We are joined by Sarina Mann of Breakthrough Public Speaking. Welcome to the show, Sarina.
Thank you very much.
Good stuff. So I've got a bio. I'm going to read this out. I say bio, that's a grand term for me going onto your LinkedIn profile and putting together some words, but it does explain who you are to the audience. So Sarina is a public speaking coach and trainer with a particular focus on giving people confidence speaking on camera. Very topical, very important at the moment. Her skills help clients record business video, guest on podcasts, speak confidently and build rapport online, especially during online networking events. And we've just recorded ONLE Talks and talking about the importance of whether, I think most people now, whether you've got a preference for in-person networking, most people do some kind of hybrid, some online. So it's something that we've all got to get better at now, isn't it? So Sarina, what led you? What a cool job, public speaking coach. What led you down that career path?
Thank you, James. I never would have expected that I would do this when I was a child, thinking, what am I going to do when I grow up? This is something that certainly wasn't on my agenda, mainly because I had a lot of anxiety growing up. And that's part of what you'll learn when I share why I'm doing what I do right now, which is helping other people to overcome their anxiety, mainly because I've been through it. I know how it feels, but there was more than that. When I first discovered that I could speak in front of others, this was really a breakthrough moment, which is why I named my business Breakthrough, because there was literally no other word that I could think of to describe what happened. So I was recovering from an illness and I was actually just wanting to go on a confidence building exercise. So I joined Toastmasters International. It's an organization helping people develop their leadership, communication, and public speaking skills. And I'd always had a fear of public speaking. Throughout my childhood and teenage years, I had really high anxiety. I never spoke in front of people. It's not what I did. And I felt it wasn't something that I could do. But I decided speaking, if you run your own business, I was running my own business, I needed to be able to have confidence and speak in front of people. So joining Toastmasters, I learned the skills of being a good speaker. Quite quickly, I entered lots of speech contests and won multiple awards, even at national level. I'm still entering contests and in a few months be entering at a contest at district level. And I love doing that because what I realized is that everyone can become a confident speaker. It's not about whether you're naturally confident, whether you're an extrovert, whether you're a charismatic person. A lot of people think that speaking in front of others, public speaking, is about somehow that person and their qualities, but it isn't. It's a skill. Therefore, like with any skill, it can be developed, even if you're shy, even if you're anxious, even if you're an introvert, even if you don't think speaking is your thing. You just learn the techniques and then you can do it. So when I realized that I could speak in front of people, and not only that, influenced the lives of people, make their day a little bit better as a result of what I've said, I realized this is an amazing thing to do. And if anyone can do this, I want to share this, because being a confident speaker affected other areas of my life. I felt more confident in my relations with others. I felt more confident overall as a human being, and I didn't have this fear of public speaking hanging over me the whole time. So in that moment, it really was a moment, because I realized I want to share this. I want to help other people to see that they can do this too, because I wasn't a confident person. I had been anxious. So it was really that moment where I realized I want to share this with other people and help them find their voice, just as I had done with mine.
I love that. How easy was it for you to transition online? Because we spoke earlier, and most of your coaching is delivered online, and you are helping people themselves speak confidently online.
It was really easy because I started my business in 2020. So it wasn't intended to be about online communication and online delivery of talks. But what I realized is that as soon as we went into lockdown, when everything became online, I realized something really unusual that I hadn't really expected. I realized that people who were very confident speakers in person, so I had and have a whole network of speakers, people who are confident to speak in front of thousands of people, but they didn't feel confident on camera. And what I realized is that's another skill to learn. It's not just public speaking. So speaking on camera is it's a niche area. It's a specific skill. How do you speak on camera? Just because you're good in person does not mean you'll be good on camera. And I realized my first few clients were confident speakers already. And they said, I can speak really well in front of an in-person audience, but on camera, I already feel so uncomfortable. So then that's when I started my business. So it was a natural transition, actually, because I realized that this is also here to stay. So not only that people had an issue with it, but this is here to stay. It's going to be part of our businesses.
You can really feel that passion, can't you? When you talk, it's like a meditative, isn't it? It really you feel very relaxed, you feel very calm. A couple of things that you said there, and I think we've been talking about this a lot this week, especially within networking, James, the introvert or the shy person, and the impact that this space has on them, particularly in introducing themselves at networking. I think that's really interesting. And when you've just said that it doesn't matter if you're introvert, extrovert, you can be a good public speaker. So that's really refreshing to hear that it's a skill that you can hone and that you can train yourself to become better at that thing if you want to, I guess, because if you don't want to do it, you're not going to be open enough to it. So that's something that I think, particularly at the moment with conversations we've been having, has stood out. And also the fact that you talk about Toastmasters and just being in that sphere of people, I guess that's that, having that network of people with that shared goal to raise each other up, to get, I guess you give feedback, you talk in front of each other, and that's giving you the space, isn't it, to be able to excel in that area.
Oh yes, and actually that's an essential part of developing yourself as a speaker. That's how I began, but also what happened when in lockdown, for a few of my friends, we actually decided to create our own mastermind specifically for speaking on camera. And this is when things started to really take off, because I realized, wow, this is a very unique skill, and you need that feedback. One of the reasons why you need that feedback, especially on camera, is because those limiting beliefs really start to kick in. That's when you hear your voice back, you see yourself back, and you think, oh no, this doesn't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable with this. It makes me feel vulnerable. And then when it's you post it out to the world, you don't know who your audience will be. It brings up a different set of fears to public speaking in person.
How do you feel when you see yourself back? Is that a comfortable experience for you now, or?
Yes, so that's a great question, because what I try to help people see is that it's a journey. So it's totally normal to cringe when you see yourself back the first time. Now I see myself back, and it's more objective. So I just say, what did I do well in that, and what could I improve on? It's very objective, and that's where everyone can get. That's where everyone needs to be, because otherwise there's a lot of emotional time spent on this. I looked awful, and that can be a real obstacle, and people can even give up at that point. And this is when the feedback comes in, because often we don't see for ourselves what our strengths are as a speaker because of those limiting beliefs. So when I first started on camera, I thought, no way, because I saw myself back and I didn't like what I saw. And it was from that feedback from people I trusted who had experience in public speaking, who said, this is good. But I wasn't aware of that initially, which was my journey as a speaker as well, which is reflected in, I think, everyone's journey, because you don't know what your strengths are. So discovering your strengths as a speaker encourages you. For whatever reason we can have limiting beliefs. When I was growing up, my mum always used to say I mumbled. So I thought that I mumbled a lot in my life, that I was a mumbler and I wasn't clear in my communication. And so interestingly, the feedback I always get is clarity, that I'm very good with my clarity, that I'm clear, I'm succinct, I've got clarity, which threw me, because I thought, are they not hearing me? I mean, I'm a mumbler. But it wasn't. It turns out my mum had a hearing problem, So we can all have these beliefs. from things where we learn at school or growing up, and we think that's how we're speaking, and it's not the case. And we can, in the video, I was seeing a mumbler. I was seeing someone who's not clear because of the belief, not because of what was there. So getting that feedback can help you to see what's actually there. And then also someone you trust to give open feedback to say, actually, this is what you could do to improve yourself as a speaker as well.
Be brave for that. Yeah. So 2020, when you started the business, so it's still a relatively young business. Is there anything that stands out, Sarina, that you're particularly proud of so far?
Yes, absolutely. It's those moments really where I've helped people to find their voice. There's nothing more that I love than seeing my clients really shine on camera and going through that journey. You start with them when they're not sure, they feel they're not good enough, why would anyone want to listen to them, they don't like their image back, or they had a bad experience. So many different things that people can go through. So it's a sensitive and delicate process, but then bringing them through the other end where they're shining and they're like, wow, I can do this. Then that is honestly, those are my proudest moments. And when I get the feedback from them, the testimonials, I had a recent testimonial, one of my previous clients, Anna Katrin Madlung, the founder of Global Recourse, who said something about, I love the way, Sarina created a safe space for us all to dare to try. Something like this, and that really moved me, because I thought, great, because it's not just about the techniques, because anyone can teach techniques. It's about the environment that you create through compassion, through love, through empathy, through understanding, and then guiding people through the right steps. And for me, those are my proudest moments, definitely, that I've been able to create a safe space for people to shine and not be afraid to make mistakes, be the best version of themselves. And to find their voice. And when I see that my clients have done that, then to me, those are my proudest moments.
That's lovely, isn't it? And a great testimonial there as well. So thinking about business in general, who springs to mind? Who do you admire the most in business? There might be a couple.
I actually would not pinpoint any one or two individuals. I could actually list, right now, I could list many. There are so many people that inspire me. So I'd rather focus on the qualities rather than the individual. I really admire the everyday person who overcomes extraordinary adversity, but just does it anyway. Yeah. So and this is actually more people than we think. Whether they've been anxious, or they have a disability or an illness or whatever difficult life situation, but they're still a kind person as a result. And they're still doing their best to move forward, thinking creatively and bringing something of value to the world. And I see that a lot, actually. When I'm on LinkedIn, that's my main channel, I see a lot of inspiration there. And I think that's amazing. And what we're seeing now is really a lot of personal branding, people talking about personal stories so that we get to know them more. And it's in those moments when that person comes to life for you, because you realize, I hadn't realized that was their experience. And now look at them. That's amazing.
And that's the getting to know the person behind the business title, isn't it?
Exactly, which is so important. Again, why speaking on camera is so important, because just an image of yourself or just a bit of text is just not the same when you can just be there in someone's living room, speaking to them and developing that a more personal relationship with them.
Yeah. The business success is so relative, isn't it? And most people don't end up building a multi-million-pound company, do they? But often they would have overcome more, like you're saying. And if they're able to, I admire anyone that can run a business, because it's hard. If you can pay your own way and pay your bills and pay for your family, doesn't always have to be a huge pot of gold at the end of it. That's an admirable thing. So yeah, I'm right with you there.
For sure.
We talk a lot about business puts you under pressure. It asks a lot from you, and it can often get in the way of your personal well-being requirements and needs. Have you got any tips to help people retain that balance and not let the business overwhelm their health?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's really, really common to feel overwhelmed in business. I've had moments where I've become overwhelmed in my own business. And I think what it is understanding that this is pretty normal, but therefore also to look out for it. that if you find yourself every second of every minute of every day, working and feeling overworked, that's when you start to lose that passion. And so there are so many dangers to that, because you need, of course, to be your best self so that you can help others. So what I would say is to make sure you do the things in life that you enjoy, and that doesn't get put to one side, because it's important. So sometimes we can think, oh, it's not important. The business is important. Other things are not important. But time with friends, walks in nature, doing the things that you enjoy, that's important. So whenever I find I'm neglecting those, that's my danger sign. Oh, I need to go back to make sure I do these kinds of things, to laugh a little, laughter, joy, these kinds of emotions that help you to feel a sense of well-being and less stressed. I personally also use meditation. I've been meditating for over 20 years. I did that because I had very high anxiety, and now I don't. And it's had a huge impact on my life. I teach meditation for a charity. It's very much part of my life, and it's my way of life, so that I'm always connected to my meditation practice and also a community of people who practice. So we can sort of encourage one another, and that time shared with community and friends, I think it helps you to feel more balanced. Because it's when you feel overwhelmed, I think it's because you've lost that balance. So it's doing the things you enjoy and having some kind of techniques to help you to feel less stressed in the moment, whether that's meditation or yoga or whatever. There are so many different techniques available these days, but it's purposely making the time, because the time isn't just going to arise by itself. And I think we've all learned that running a business, oh, I'll do that when I have time. That will never come. So it's about making that time, specifically putting that time aside for your well-being.
I've definitely spoken to more people in the last couple of months, small business owners, that are actually diarising personal time, because otherwise it's just not happening. So I think, recognising that you need that space, that time to do that thing, whether it's meditation, walks, exercise, whatever it is, recognise it. What rejuvenates you is the thing.
Exactly. But also other practical things you could do, like outsourcing. That's something I've done much more of, in particular these last 12 months. And I will be doing this year as well, outsourcing and automating things. So reducing your workload. So finding smart ways, practical ways that can also help you with that workload.
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking back to 2020, if you could start again, if you had all that knowledge that you've got now, what thing would you do you wish you knew when you launched your business?
Great question. I think the biggest thing for me was I felt I had to just do everything on my own. That I was just, one person facing the world with many other individuals and their businesses. And I saw the world of business very much as individuals. And I think now I see it as a team. My business is a team. I actually have a team now. And I very much view running a business as a team activity, whether it's because you've got a team, outsourcing and so on, or whether that's because you've got a great network of people. Don't try to do it by yourself, and always learn from people. And this is, again, why networking is so important. You're constantly learning, or your interactions on social media, you're listening, you're learning from your audience. So you're part of something. We are all part of something. We're never working in isolation. Our ideas are constantly coming from other people. We're sharing things with other people. So I think it's that sense of being part of a team, giving to others, helping others. I've received lots of help from others myself. So it's that giving, sharing, and helping one another, and really feeling part of a community and a team, rather than doing everything, by yourself.
That's very important, isn't it? So here's the question that we really want to ask, because we love this one. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
The answer to that is a night owl. Yeah, I really am. I wish I were an early bird, but it's interesting, because about 10 o'clock at night, I'll be thinking, this is a great idea for a speech. I feel so creative and energized, but thinking, no, I need to be going to bed.
Oh, that's brilliant. I would have guessed early bird.
We struggle with that one, don't we? Because don't even ask us to pick something up at 10 o'clock at night, because we couldn't even do that. We're absolutely useless in the evening. So 4 o'clock's like middle of the night for us in the afternoon.
Wow, it's so interesting, isn't it? I often find it fascinating. You can never guess with people either.
I used to be more of a night person, but and it shows you can shift your rhythms. We're now, early to bed, early to rise people, but it's whatever works, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I try not to go to bed too late, actually, because I could stay up very late, but I specifically don't, so that I can, do things in the morning and so on.
That's fascinating. I do love that question. I really do. So thinking back to networking, obviously that's how we met you. We met you through ONLE. So can you tell us what you've gained personally from networking?
I've gained a lot from networking. Ultimately, it's enriched me as a person because I've learned from others. And I think that's one of the main things that is so crucial for every business. But if your business is coming from yourself, then we all need to make sure that we're keeping up to date with things, we're learning, we're understanding people. So I've certainly become enriched, I think, through networking in multiple different ways. I've learned from others, ways of thinking, but also specifically new skills, whether it's to do with marketing or business, these kinds of things, and had an opportunity to share as well. And I think within networking, there are opportunities where you can, for instance, do things like this. You can deliver talks, or write something, so you can share your knowledge within the network. I think that's incredibly valuable, and also that feeling of support. Again, as I said, one of my core values is really not seeing yourself alone in the world and running your own business in isolation, because it's really not the case. It's about seeing yourself as part of a team, and I think that networking can feel like part of a team. I'm part of this. I'm part of the ONLE Networking. I'm part of a group of people with similar ideas to myself. Although we're all running different businesses, we've got similar ideas and we all want to support one another. And also there's that understanding of running a small business, that other people might not have. If you've got a job, if you've got that regular paycheck coming in, there's lots of things that people might not relate to or just not understand about what it means to run a small business. And I think it's gold having that understanding. How's your business going? Are you working too hard? Because we know that when you run your own business, it's likely you're going to be working long hours, because also, we're passionate. We want to do that, but we have to be careful not to overdo things. So I think it's really helped me to see things in balance, but also, of course, connections. Through networking, personally through networking, I've gained clients, referrals, and so on, which is, of course, so essential for every business. So I think that's really some important factors involved in networking.
A lot of gold in networking if you approach it the right way, and you've certainly got the right attitude to it, Sarina. So thank you. Well, thank you for joining us. We've loved having you on the show today. You're a ray of sunshine, tons of knowledge, and we're grateful to have you, Sarina. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So this has been the ONLE Networking Show. Please like, subscribe, comment, share, and we'll see you again next month.